it's important to realize that free will is an all-nothing game. An all-nothing game. So you either have personal free will in all situations, or you don't have it in any situation. So you can't say, for example, okay, my body and genes are determined and so is my environment, but my mind is free, so no decision I make depends on my body or environment. It doesn't work like that. But, oh, if I'm fat, I have the free will to choose exercise. Your choice to exercise was caused by your obesity, so there's no possible way to logically get out of that and be completely independent all of a sudden. There is no personal free will. Now, enter the royal we. If anyone doesn't know what the royal we is, it's a pronoun that people of high office use whenever they say something that speaks for the entire country. So, example, when a monarch or president uses the royal we, he's transcending his individual ego to speak from an ideal, a higher power. It carries a serious authority. This practice is traced back to its origin with Muslim empires. In the Quran, Allah constantly refers to himself as we. And in the Quran, as you're reading it, the effect is unmistakable. It seems as if it's the voice of willpower itself speaking. Willpower itself. And in fact, in Islam, the idea is not to begin to take up abiding in the will of God. It's really to just be happy that you are already actively carrying out the will of God. So to embrace Islam is to embrace submission. But really, it's no democracy when it comes to the will of God. Even to the point where Allah chooses whom He will guide to embrace Islam and who He will lead astray. Whomsoever Allah guides, no one can misguide, and whomsoever Allah misguides, no one can guide. This is a part of the Muslim saying. This is the Muslim perspective. Everyone is a pawn in executing Allah's will, whether they are Muslim or not, is the understanding. Just like how, of course, to a lesser degree, because it's secular, everyone's a pawn of the state. And so if you break the will of the state, the law, you're turned into an example, propaganda, and uses a tool to manifest the law, even though you thought you were breaking it. Now, if, for example, a New Age writer were to use the royal we, it would stand for God, but in the New Age case, God is the universe. You know, it's you, me, the animals, atoms, etc. It's the collective consciousness of all that is. Now, if you take all that is as one collective, what is outside of it that can oppose it? All that is. What is outside of all that is? Nothing. In fact, all that is, which is its being depends on nothing for its existence. So on opposite ends, you have being and you have nothing. Being and nothing can form a synthesis. We would probably call that becoming. So being, nothing, and becoming. It's a trinity. We could also call that form, formlessness, and a synthesis which would be called suchness. Now, what I just did was, this is thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. And I would just refer you, anybody who is not too familiar with that, to the writings of Georg, Hegel, the philosopher, and I'll put a link up on the side or whatever. Now, this trinity depends on each other. From like form owes its existence basically to emptiness. And one of the fundamental concepts of Buddhism is that of dependent origin. And Wikipedia has a great article on dependent origin, also known as conditioned genesis, that I'm also going to link. One of the things that makes answering the question of free will so difficult is that it's really a form of the question of Genesis. What was the first cause? If you subscribe to the Buddhist concept of conditioned genesis, which makes a lot of sense, First cause is misleading. There is no first cause. Everything's inherently empty. Emptiness. Emptiness, though, depends on form. And emptiness wouldn't be a real phenomenon except for form. It's defined as an absence of form. Sort of like how if there were no short people, there couldn't possibly be tall people. And I'll also post an article about this fundamental Buddhist concept, like I said, on the sidebar. It's very important. Meanwhile, it will help to bring it back down to earth by answering, okay, about this emptiness that I was speaking about. How could I discern it in my own personal experience? Emptiness would, to the microcosm, as into us individuals, it would be the witness. Questions many meditators have is, if I'm noticing my thoughts, what is it that is noticing? That's the witness. As soon as you think you can discern a quality of the witness as far as a direct experience, you can be sure that that's not the witness, because the witness is empty of any quality. It's the space in which thought and every other quality arises. So you might hear me say that and be tempted to say, okay, so a quality the witness has is spaciousness. But that's not quite, It's the space in which spaciousness arises. And not even that. It's the space in which spaciousness, you understand? It goes on ad infinitum. That's the witness. It can only be defined negatively. It's not this, it's not that. That's the emptiness in the microcosm. Now, the form in the microcosm is the exact opposite. Whereas the witness was nothing that arose in consciousness, the form is everything that arises in consciousness. Your thoughts, feelings, your reaction to your thoughts, your reaction to your feelings, your ego, someone else's ego, etc. Everything. And right here is a perfect opportunity to include a quote from Hegel, who said, finite things don't determine themselves, because as finite things, their essential character is determined by their boundaries over and against other finite things. So there can be no personal free will, because that immediately implies form, which has boundaries. It implies finitude by its definition. It's buried in the language. It's like the fine print. And you could probably guess where the fine print of finitude is hiding in a statement like this. I have free will. I have free will. One of those words has an asterisk by it, and it sabotages the entire assertion. And it's the I. I implies finitude, we says all. So I suggest we retire the phrase I have free will in favor of we have free will with this one note.